against Newcastle United on Sunday. It's alleged the defender acted in an improper manner to provide a response to this charge. They had to do this, Danny, didn't they? Bearing in mind the charter that everybody signed prior to the start of the season.
Yeah, inevitable. I spoke about it on Monday. I think there's an example that they're going to have to set, of course, especially with this high bar they're talking about on cutting down on this petulance. And I think time wasting and stuff like that's a little bit different than this. But I think we do have to be careful because we were talking earlier, weren't we? And I think you brought up a good point that I was talking about Monday night, actually, regarding the emotional aspect of football and the passion and how you contain that. I mean, I remember getting sent off a couple of times, and one time particularly having a good old go at the ref. And next time I saw him, I apologised. He laughed. We shook hands and we cracked on in the next game with a bit of banter.
Which is absolutely fine, because the thing that I was saying to you is that we as supporters, we all want our players to show passion.
Of course.
We champion. One of the great beauties of the Premier League is that all of our players play with passion. And if you try to sort of try and say we need that, but don't do that bit, don't be upset when you get sent off, that's not going to work, and at some stages it's going to spill over. The issue here is that it's spilt over on too many occasions now, and they're trying to contain it.
This is it. Whatever is going on now with this correction has been brought about. We're not in the space where we had this tirade of abuse levied at referees, as we did in the late 90s, early 2000s with Manchester United players haranguing referees up the pitch and down the pitch. But we are in a space now where there is a balance of power in the game about who is got the authority on the pitch. And I've written an article tomorrow about referees needing to re-engage that. It's one thing showing passion. It's another thing Liverpool captain turning around to the referee and telling him he's an effing joke. It's another thing him walking off the pitch and a fourth official, for whatever reason, best possessed him, wanting to shake his hand and telling him, don't touch me. Right? These are the sort of attitudes that you don't necessarily need to see from leaders on football pitches or football players passing it off as passion. That's not passion, that's disrespect. There's a difference. And I'm all for wanting my players to be able to get involved, not to take things lightly, not to be happy when they're substituted, not to be delighted when there's a penalty awarded against them. But there is also a balance between that and the culture of players which has crept in, that you saw with Andy Robertson last year, that you saw with Bruno Fernandes, that you've seen crept in the game. And I think the referees are absolutely, I think they've got to up their game, but I think they've absolutely right to go, that's it, line's been drawn now.
What's the appropriate punishment here? And does it send a message?
Well,
what's the punishment?
It will
which
send
turns
a message
around to everybody else and says, don't do it.
I think they'll give him one more game.
So he'll be banned for 2?
Yeah, I think so. I think anything more than that would be really harsh. But do you think there's a different side? Because you mentioned a sentence there, and I know you just flippantly did, but you know where you say you're a effing joke?
Yeah.
If I say that without any physical intimidation or a point in the face, or there's things you... When I played, and I don't want to live in the past, sorry, but say dark ages then, the past, but there was something more healthy about the relationship I felt we had with referees then, where although sometimes it crossed the line, you could let some emotion go and vent, and they'd manage you. And they'd help you come out, get over it, even joke with you along, get it out of you, and not.
But it wasn't a two-way transaction, was it? Because referees had that dynamic
it was.
with you. Well,
to a degree,
again,
it was.
I go back to the interview that I did with Mike Dean, and that has been eviscerated by certain sections of the media because of some of the things he said. But he'd have a dynamic with players, and he'd say things to players in the same context, and players would take offence at it. So it was a one-way transaction. It was basically, you can vent your spleen at a referee, but if a referee says, "Shut up, you're having a crap game," all of a sudden offended on behalf of the players' union.
But also that came later, because that wasn't when.
But also, there's another issue here, isn't there? And the issue is this: it's the fact that actually we've got to a situation where we can't recruit referees anymore because players down the food chain in grassroots football are copying the actions of the footballers in the Premier League, and those actions have got to a point now where when they're transmitted down the food chain, they're causing physical problems for those referees. They're deterring people from taking up the whistle, and therefore, ultimately, over a longer period of time, we're reducing the number of people that are coming through the ranks and lowering the standards of referees.
I think it's a bit of
an
easy thing to say that it depends what you're saying. They copy. You know, I can talk from
Well,
being
grassroots referees will tell you that happens. We have that. Whenever we have this debate on the show, they
yeah,
always
they're more
ring in.
comfortable being aggressive. You mean, or you're talking verbally, or what? What
They have
aspect? Of it?
physical violence.
Yeah.
That big they get. We've got a referee that works on this show that's been confronted by parents, by kids, by people who are standing on the sidelines watching
But I
these
think
games.
if you're in children's football, I think if you've got parents and children who are behaving that way towards referees, they're far past being able to be
But we should
influenced
clear
by
the
what they're
argument up, right?
watching on
there is-
television. For God's sake, they're
argument,
ridiculous people.
if the argument is a lazy argument, and I don't think it is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't clear up the top of the game so that that argument is removed. If the behaviour still manifests itself in grassroots football, and yet the professional game has operated at a higher level than it's currently operating, whatever the players are getting now, and I think there's a slight over-egging of the pudding, right? Because everything happens when you correct something. What happens is you're too far to the left,
Yeah,
you go
that's
too
fair.
far to the right,
Yeah.
and then you calibrate in the middle.
Yeah.
But they brought it upon themselves. These ridiculous leading voices in football, having the sheer barefaced audacity to complain about the extra amount of times being played in games, whilst it's their players that are creating those outcomes. It's the ridiculousness, and I make the referees absolutely right to start stamping down.
Is
on
there
it.
a case though here, Danny? And Mikel Arteta told me this last Monday night, that actually we're in a new era here. We're all getting used to it, and it's all going to be a bit of a difficult situation for us because we haven't had time to acclimatise to this new situation. Should there have been better communication? Should there have been more of a sort of practice run-up? Should we have had Premier League referees employing these new rules in effect, these new guidelines in effect during pre-season matches to get them ready? That was a suggestion from Mikel Arteta. Or was it communicated? I mean, I got the email 3 or 4 times about the charter. I don't know about you. Or was it communicated well enough so that they should have started this season knowing full well what was going to happen?
In an ideal world, yeah, but I think sometimes you can't have that for different reasons, and they've been presented. People know them, and you've just got to get on. There will be what Simon's saying is right. Some players and managers, I think, are going to suffer because of previous bad behaviour of others, and Van Dijk's probably an example of that. So I take that point on board. I think it's right, but no, I did say this because I did say this I think last week on the show with Simon about them learning about the charter really late. But ultimately,
it wouldn't have made a blind bit of difference.
I was just going to say,
They
would it
have
really
behaved-
have mattered?
whatever they haven't got is the reasons why they explain their behaviour in real time. The bottom line is they got into these habits pretty quick. They can get out of these habits pretty quick. The fact of the matter is we had managers calling referees cheats.
Yeah, which you can't do.
Which you cannot do. What was happening was that the culture of football is often about liberties. Push and CFI you can get, and you tolerate it and tolerate it. And all of a sudden, something enormous happens and everyone blows up. The scenarios that were beginning to happen now was the norm was players being able to talk to referees in a certain way. The players now getting to the point where there was altercations where we've got an official...
They were pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, and they've pushed them far enough now.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've got a new guy in top, and Howard Webb's gone, that'll do.
Yeah.
I'm coming in now and I'm going to fix this and I'm going to lead it and I'm going to start emboldening my referees. And that will mean he's also got up the standards of the referees. He's got to make sure that we've got this ridiculous characterisation.
That will take time. That's not going to happen
But
overnight.
there's this ridiculous characterisation, Sam. When we introduced VAR, somebody told every talking head that we were going to get 100% of every decision right. Well, the human interaction that enables that not to be the case. So the characterisation of things, the vilification of referees in football is unique to football. It doesn't happen in any other sport, and it's a blot on our landscape because this is the greatest sport, this is the national sport, and it's the one that has the least respect in its culture.
And one of the biggest problems that actually it's nothing to do with the rereferees half the time, it's to do with the ridiculous way the laws are written. But that's another.
That's another. Just
Or the
quickly
way the
though,
players bend them.
I think we have to be really careful. What they've got to be really careful of is separating the two aspects of the petulance and time wasting stuff, and the plaudits we were given last season of the high bar set about letting the game flow and not every tackle is a foul, and when players go over doesn't mean it's a foul, because I thought that was really good last year. We had some great chats about it, didn't we? About
we did.
Referees really encouraging the game to go and not pulling it up forever. Just because someone screams when they go over doesn't mean a foul.
But by the way, the referee was at Fulham last night was allowing a lot to go.
Yes, so let's keep that going.
Which they have.
And let's make sure we don't get them. get a crossover.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some little mistakes on that, but the view coming out of the PGMOL prior to the season was we are going to keep that bar high. We want contact, not every contact. It's got to be significant contact in order for it to be a foul. Hi, Sam. The real issue here is that it's a Liverpool player and the media is littered with ex-Liverpool apologists. Van Dijk acted terribly and deserved to be sent off. If this was Bruno Fernandes, everyone would be saying he'd got what he deserved. That's Rob. I think he's talking to you.
You just said that Virgil van Dijk needs to be consequenced.
Yeah, I think the
and you're a Liverpool apologist.
Yeah, the reality is that's about likability of a player, not club. I understand his point because there is a lot of it, but it's about likability of the player. But Virgil van Dijk is quite a likable guy. Bruno Fernandes isn't. That's the simple argument. It's not about Man U and Liverpool.
Do you think Bruno Fernandes is likable?
I
Sam?
do actually.
Only because you have to interview him.
And I thought,
if you looked from afar, why would you lie?
I do like him. I've met him a couple of times.
He's a wonderfully gifted footballer who's very creative and got great skills, and you can enjoy watching him
a different
play.
culture to you.
He's not likeable as a footballer. As a person, you've met him. He might be likeable. I'm not saying.
Well, that's what you asked me.
But you're nasty. You're now his mate, are you?
No, I've just spoke to him a couple of times. He's quite nice.
Well,
he just wants to be able to speak to him again.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's about.
He's not particular. You can't watch him and think he's likeable.
You two sitting in your ivory tower. Some of us have to go into the
I
muck and trenches
I
of the
do,
dugouts.
but he's not likeable. I probably wasn't very likeable. No, I mean as a
probably
footballer.
about it.
Well, that's different, isn't it? You know, he carries himself differently on the field of play.
He's saying he'd have got hammered. The reason players get hammered more than others a lot of times because they're not very likeable from the perception from afar.
Very intuitive.
Not because
that's why he's clever.
Not because they they see them playing with their kids on a swing and feeding dogs in a shelter. You know what I mean?
Well,
because that's a disturbing set of images you're conjuring up there. Why would you be watching someone playing with their kids on a swing, Danny?
Danny, I think you should probably stop there before we start using the dump button.
Because I've got kids who play on swings.
03717 223344 if you want to get in touch. There's so much more to come on the show.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSport app and on your smart speaker. TalkSport.
Let's talk about the situation at Chelsea. And last night, the Chelsea Supporters Trust weren't too happy because Chelsea have revealed that they're going to scrap subsidiary. Virgil van Dijk won't be as busy this weekend as he was last weekend. He's been charged by the FA for acting in an improper manner after being sent off in Liverpool's win over Newcastle at the weekend. An FA spokesman said. Let's talk about the situation at Chelsea. And last night, the Chelsea Supporters Trust weren't too happy because Chelsea have revealed that they're going to scrap subsidiary. I keep saying it. Subsidised coaching for travel for domestic away games. A PR disaster from the club, or is travelling to away games a privilege and not a right?
What are they, a registered charity now?
Who?
The owners of Chelsea.
No.
Their contribution is to buy players and to build the business, and the fans' contribution is to support it and to pay their part on it.
Well, they have been paying for travel, helping to pay for travel up until this point. But withdrawing it, why would you do that?
Thank them for what they've done, and then reassert yourself back into the place that you were before.
It's not a great look, though. If you spent £1 billion on transfers, but we can't.
They're two different things.
Why?
Because ultimately, one is about advancing the business, the other is about supporter contribution to the football club that they purport to own in spirit. So they'll only go to travel if it's subsidised. No, I don't. Listen, I can understand the argument because if you've spent £1 billion on players, but that's a completely different argument.
It costs £250,000 to do it for a whole season.
I understand
for men and women.
So
it's not that much.
In the great scheme of things, I don't know why they'd bother with it. They've made a rod for their own back by doing it in the first place. So with that in mind, why don't they carry on with it? But let's look at the moral argument. Why is it their responsibility? Tell you what, give them the bloody travel for free. No. Let's get a bit further. Give them their tickets for free. No, that's not enough. Give them the merchandise for free. Which point do you accept that football has a responsibility for owners to develop the ambitions of the football club and pay for all these ridiculous, preposterous amounts of money on footballers, but the fans also are paying for something and they're getting something back in return?
It does look ridiculously bad.
Yeah, and the fans make a massive contribution away from home, and actually one of the things we should be protecting is getting as many away fans into the ground as possible.
Taking it away is a bad look. It's a bad look because of, especially where people are.
Then why give it in the first place? So the problem is that you're
now
never there. You're now in perpetuity, right? So ultimately, you've now committed. I know what I'm sounding like sounds like a mean-spirited curmudgeon of an owner.
He does a bit.
I understand that, but I also don't understand the logic of giving it to them in the first place. Because they weren't entitled to it, They want to support their team away from home. So we have to listen dawn till dusk about how committed fans are to their football club. And you guys that own it are only there as custodians, and your job is to empty your pockets, get on with our listening to what we bitch and moan about, and to depart out the door without any money left.
That's a sweeping statement about supporters, isn't it?
But what I'm saying, but come on,
milk while they did it.
what's the subsidy? At 10 quid?
It's 20 quid, I think. Is it 20 quid? They pay 20 quid for £10 subs, apparently. Yeah.
Right, like I said, 10 quid. Right. So we're talking about 10 quid, and we're seriously saying, on one hand, I think it's small-minded of Chelsea's ownership to take it away now they've given it. But I also think it's slightly mealy-mouthed to expect it as an ongoing situation.
So
because it's not their gift.
Well, is it because the
I
club
can
have
see both sides
said?
of the argument.
Is
Yeah.
it because the club have said it's not financially sustainable to continue to offer subsidised coach travel?
Well, spending money on players to advance achievements is one thing. Giving away charity is another.
Yeah, but they can cross over. They can. I mean, you're talking about ridiculous, nonsensical amounts of money on certain
Every
bits.
single department in a football club
Well,
will
so
have a
prioritise.
budget, right? And every single department head will be told what their budgets are. And so from that point of view, they will be looking at you've got the football operation, and often the football operation has a budget and then it gets completely ignored because you have to adapt to the circumstances. But every other department, whether it's F&B, food and banqueting, whether it's merchandise, whether it's ticketing and events, all have cost controls in place.
Absolutely.
So they're separating it differently, and they're saying, well, I tell you what, we accept it's the wild, wild west over here, right? And whatever budgets we think we've got in place.
Well, who's
we're
the head
gonna-
of PR? Because PR should be going.
there you go.
Should be going over to whoever's in charge of the whole shabam and going.
Well,
This is
they're
this is a
Because
catastrophe.
the PR budget for it might well be more than £250,000.
And actually,
pounds.
let's find £250,000 off one of the staff members
Let's not
you've
give it
got
to them
who's in
the
their
But
recruitment.
let's not give it to them in the first place.
But that's too late, isn't it? It's done.
Well, I agree with that, but people are going to turn around and they're going to say, "Oh, the typical perspective." But everything, it's not just the guy that owns the bleeding football club's job to support the thing that you guys as fans say you own. I used to sit there in fans' forums going, right, spend more money. Whose money? My money. Okay, fine. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll spend more money and I'll put your season ticket
But
prices
Chelsea
up.
haven't got a problem spending money. Chelsea's spending money for fun.
So
All they're
fine.
asking
So-
is
so be
finding
happy.
some of
So
that
be-
money into the fans and the supporters' trust.
Subsidise them. And at which point,
what
where
it's
does that
doing.
stop them?
Well, it's
Where does-
stopping
where does
now
su-
with the coaches.
But where does subsidies stop?
Well,
Right.
it's only
So
for the
what's-
coaches. They're not
but-
asking for anything else.
Okay, but the bottom line is there's a cost implication behind coaches. I understand it's small beer. In the great scheme of things,
Go to
I
the
would-
players.
I would-
Someone from PR. Get a message
But
to
do
the players.
you know what burns my arse is the sense of entitlement. You're not entitled to it. If they've given it to you, the gratitude for having been given it for a year should supersede the sense of entitlement that you're now
Yeah,
entitled
but you're
to
living
it.
in cuckoo land.
But you're entitled to it in perpetuity.
No, but you're
But that's
living in
what that-
cuckoo land if you expect people to have that some sort of logical, sensible,
And also, people
grateful
are going to get
attitude.
Well,
upset
I
if they're
hope
used
for
to
a
this and
society
you're
that
going
has
to
that.
withdraw it.
You would, yeah. We'd hope
If you
it's
withdraw
society,
it,
but
people are going to react.
But
aren't they?
you had something, because a year ago, 18 months ago, we're not going to have any club. There'll be no club. Roman's gone now, and all of a sudden it's going to be melted down. And what we're going to do, we'll do anything to support our club except pay the away travel. I mean, let's have it right. I
But
mean,
what
I
happens
don't
if-
know.
what
I
happens
don't
if
know
you're-
why they're taking it away, and I can understand why people will say it's small-minded. But I also do not think it's an entitlement.
No, but nor
and
is
I'm
your,
pushing
nor,
back
nor,
against the
nor is your
entitlement.
breakfast being cooked in the morning, your shirt's being ironed every morning.
Well,
but
it's
you
Michelle's
expect,
job.
But you exactly, and you expect it to be done. You expect it to be done, and if it's not done, you'll throw your toys out the pram.
Mate, if you
You
saw
wouldn't
what
be
Michelle,
saying thankful for
if
doing
you,
it,
If you
Simon.
saw what Michelle
You
cooked,
need
you
to
wouldn't want to eat it.
apologise for
I'm not on
that.
about Michelle. I'm on about the butler. I'm on about the butler.
If you, Michelle does absolutely nothing in the house, so I don't have to apologise for anything. It's clearly a pun.
Okay, let's read the text message. Sam and Danny, on your conversation about Chelsea stopping subsidising away travel, just to let you know that since 2013, during our Premier League days, Stoke City have offered free away travel to all supporters and still do it now in the
There you
Championship,
go. Good for
which
them.
hopefully now will complete revamp of the backroom and staff, and now exciting players will see Stoke soon compete in the Premier League once more.
I doubt it.
Are they a registered charity, Stoke? I don't think they are.
No, they're run by registered people that own a betting company that make more money than God. But that's a different discussion entirely. Each to their own. I understand the argument on
Top
both
bone is
sides of it.
broken here, I forgot.
I understand each side. I understand if you've given it to them for 250 grand a year, why would you take it away? I also advance the notion that there is not an entitlement to it.
I did have an idea when we were discussing this a little bit earlier on that I think away fans, because they're so important, I think, to the fabric of English football, I think one of the things that makes it the Premier League itself really attractive across the world is the fact that you've got that sort of rivalry, that tribalistic. Yeah, so would I. I think that we did this thing with 20's plenty. I know that was that campaign, but the cost of tickets are restricted to £30 now in the Premier League away from home. I think you should pay a set fee. I think there could be a scheme where you pay a set fee, you get your ticket and travel for 40 quid. Sam? That'd be good, wouldn't it? That'd be good. In the Premier League, there's whatever supporters funds
We're in the presence of genius and we don't know it. Yeah, no one's ever had that idea before.
Oh. Well, why has no one implemented it then?
Well, how do you know that they haven't?
No, I'm saying across the board that should be the case, so that we make sure that we get these away ends filled every single week.
You can't do it across the board because clubs have different budgets, don't they?
But maybe it should be funded by a central fund.
What?
Why can't it be central fund?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Football Supporters Association could all collect the money. There could be a grant to them every single year.
Given by...
Well, it could be donated by the clubs. The clubs could have a certain percentage of their income that has to go into an away supporters fund. That's how they did the subsidised ticket in the first place.
I think clubs are going to have something to say about that, because what you want to be doing is benefiting your own supporters, not others. If you're one of the...
Well, they all join the same scheme for the away tickets subsidy. I'm just extending it to the travel as well.
You don't mean the way you mean the central pricing.
The central pricing, yeah.
Well, that was an initiative that was put to the Premier League en masse, not based upon individual clubs having different fan bases.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we could put it to them en masse. I'm saying that everyone should pay the same price, so that everyone has access to away games.
But then you've got different lengths of journeys. You've got different amounts of support bases. You've got different attendance at different grounds. Whatever are you babbling about?
Who cares about that?
Oh, that's a detail, is it?
It's just mere detail.
Why let details get away with a good idea?
All clubs do the same journeys over the course of the season.
Do you think football commentators should be compensated to go to games and have subsidy and fuel subsidies and God knows what else?
Well, we get paid to go to games, don't we?
Well, that's not the point, is it? You're there adding value to it. So there's also, without you and the value that you give to a football match, there would be less value in it. So there should be subsidies for you guys as well, so that we can listen to your babbling drivel more readily.
03717223344. Simon doesn't think that fans should be helped out in any way, shape,
I think they should be charged more.
I think they should be subsidised and they should be supported in order to make sure that they can lend their hand to the club by supporting their team away from home.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSport app and on your smart speaker. TalkSport.
Liverpool are expected to be receiving a bid from Saudi Arabian football for Mo Salah, which is eye-watering. Whether or not they take it or not is a completely different matter. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days. But with Diaz, Jota, Gakpo and a resurgent Nunez all playing for Liverpool and fit, would they have the requisite firepower to cope without Salah should that Saudi deal come to fruition? I mean, I don't think that they'll want to sell him this window, but if they did, they have got more firepower than most, haven't they?
Yeah, but they're still weaker, aren't they? Because what they don't have is that reliability, which Salah gives you even when he's playing badly, of goals. Done it year in, year out. He scores consistently 25 plus. You know, he's an incredible footballer. So,
is there anyone you see stepping into the breach? Because you know what happens when an opportunity is created. Often people grasp the nettle. That's what Spurs fans are hoping that Richarlison will do. In terms of in Harry Kane's absence, he won't obviously get to the level of Harry Kane. Is there anyone that you can see in the Liverpool mix that could subsequently step up? Núñez is the obvious candidate to score more goals. Can you see that being a sort of freeing of the shackles of Núñez because he becomes more susceptible to being picked more regularly because Jurgen Klopp has less choices?
I think that's a great point, yeah. What I think you'd find is if Gakpo, for example, or Jota was to fill the right-hand side, if Salah left and they didn't sign anyone, what you would find is their output would become greater because they're playing more and their confidence would grow.
Yeah.
And actually, there's also an argument to suggest, a bit like Henderson did when Gerrard left, is that the flower blooms more because they're not as intimidated, or not intimidated is the wrong word, but you know they're allowed more game time and more space to show
Give
their
more latitude.
Yeah, bigger platform if you like.
Yeah.
So, I think Liverpool would cope fine, but I still don't think in those big moments that Salah gives you in the big games that they would be able to compete for the league. I still think they'd compete for the top four, but it would be more difficult. So if you had across the front, if you had Diaz back fit. Well, he is back fit, playing well. So Diaz would chip in double figures. You'd need Nunez double figures. You'd need Gakpo and Jota, really, between them all to be chipping in with double figures.
Nunez will
But
get
You'd
double
expect,
figures.
you
this
should
year.
expect
Easily.
that. You should
No,
expect
you
that.
should.
Yeah,
But you probably wouldn't get those forward double figures if Salah stays
that's my point.
because they wouldn't have the time.
Right.
So
So it's not beyond the wit of Liverpool or the perception of reality that this deal could find its way happening, and Liverpool being
Not
predominantly
wasting the money.
uncomfortable with the ramifications of it, and maybe going again as Liverpool have done previously in January, like they did with Lucas Diaz when they brought him forward because Spurs were trying to nick it.
yeah.
And have themselves a striker in January because they've got the money now.
My feeling is if they come in with over 100 million, that 31-year-old, he's probably going to go next summer anyway for less because his contract's then only got a year left. I'd be taking it. Makes Liverpool weaker, but for the bigger, for the greater good.
It makes Liverpool weaker this season,
yes,
but gives them an
long-term.
opportunity
Long
to
term,
reinvest
no
long-term.
players bigger than the club, any club, not just Liverpool.
Luis Diaz is a terrific player, and he started the season
is.
really well. He was injured for a lot last season, but when he did play last season, he was still
fuming
great.
when he got brought off.
He was on Sunday because of the sending off.
Which
I was
is-
fuming
which
as well
is
because
fine,
he's in my fantasy team. But he's a real talent. He can add goals to his game, even more goals to his game. And the finish against Bournemouth was terrific.
Well, he doesn't. Since every time he plays for Liverpool, he's a goal threat. He doesn't need to add goals to his game; they're already there.
Yeah,
He
but it's
just
the
needs to
first time
stay
he scored
fit.
in back-to-back games. For
Yeah,
Liverpool,
but he's a
wasn't it?
winger, back to back. He'll get goals if he plays. What he is different from the others is he travels with the ball really well. He's got that great ability to go past people.
What do you think of Jota?
I think he's a very reliable goal scorer, end product really good, but he's a bit. He needs to polish up his link up and his other bits, but he's very reliable in terms of getting your goals. So you'll always have him in and around. I don't think he's. I mean, for me, we'll probably talk about it. Well, unless we're doing it now, I thought the actual Nunez dilemma.
Yes, we are going to do it now.
I say dilemma. I've said from day one before the season started, he'd be in my best 11 for Liverpool, 100%.
Well, his XG last year was good and solid for the number of minutes that he played, and he didn't live up to that. He missed a couple of big
He did.
chances.
Played
but
off. He played wide a lot.
sometimes,
He's
yeah.
not a wide player.
And he got into we were there, the dodgy situation with Crystal Palace, which stopped him from
That
really
was
getting
harsh.
any momentum.
I think he hit the woodwork more than any other player as well.
Yeah.
He is going to score so many goals. He's got
He was
great
sharp on Sunday, wasn't
great pace,
Yeah.
physical presence, good in the air on crosses. He'll run behind. His link-up's not that bad. Jurgen has expressed concern about his defensive intelligence, but I don't see that being a big issue to work on because he's got the physical capability to press and run about and chase people. So you just work with him on it. I think he's the most perfect 9 we've got. Gakpo can play up there, but he's not really a 9. He can play drop in midfield, play as a 10, play on the left, but he's got to play him. He's got to give him now. Just let him go.
They've spent a bit of time with him as well because he's been a bit of a butt of the jokes and it's been a bit of a laugh of the joke. His English isn't great. He's spent a lot of time trying to get his English up to speed because they want him to be able to communicate in English in the dressing room, on the training pitch. He also has claimed that he's benefited from turning off social media after facing criticism in his early life at Liverpool. He said, I used to live watching the social media networks. It made me bad. They say they keep criticising me, but I don't see anything now. I am working in silence and things are working for me. For me, let them speak what they want. My head is fine. I continue to work in silence. Whatever minutes touch me, I will go in, do my job and try my best. If you were advising players now, would you say to them, don't get involved in social media?
It depends upon the personality of the individual. If you want to take stock of total strangers saying destructive things about you and use it in a constructive way to advance yourself, then read their quotes and push yourself on from it. If it's something that impacts upon you, then of course we all know that social media is a bastion of drivel and emboldening imbeciles at times to say things that they wouldn't have the temerity or strength of character to say to somebody if they got the opportunity to say to them. They'd probably be too busy asking for his autograph.
Yeah, but it can impact you, can't it?
Well, it can.
Even when
especially-
you're reading it, sometimes I'm
as you're
sure
young,
you
when
sit there
you're
going,
younger.
"Wow."
No,